Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to teach you the basics of how to play your Magicka Necromancer. This is the first video of my How to Play series. I am Alcast from alcasthq.com. Make sure to not forget to subscribe so you always stay up to date with Elder Scrolls Online content. If you're looking for full builds with beginner or advanced setups, make sure to check out my website. This video has 3 parts. In the first part, we're going to take a look at the unique Necromancer skills, so you know what kind of abilities you want to level up. In the second part, I'm talking about resource management, which is usually a big point, especially for new players, because it's not always easy to manage resources. And in the last part, I want to give you a few general tips that will help you overall increase the efficiency of your character. With this specific setup, I made sure you can play solo. That means you dish out a ton of damage. You can heal and shield yourself in case you get attacked by enemy monsters. You also notice we have a very class-based setup. So we have a lot of class-based abilities. We also have a few of non-class-based, which I will get into later. But first, I want to talk about the class abilities that I run on this setup. One thing, please don't forget, class abilities, usually like damage abilities or even healing abilities, scale with your spell damage and max magicka. Once a base ability reaches its max level, you can choose between 2 morphs. You want to make sure to choose the magicka based morph, because we're a Magicka based Necromancer. If you need more help with that, check out the Magicka Necromancer Beginner's Guide, link in the description below. You will find this specific setup there and also a few other things that you can level up while leveling. When we take a look at this setup, Resistant Flash, this is one of your main burst heals. It heals for a lot. And also the nice thing about this is, if you heal for 10,000, you will get 5,000 physical and spell resistance for 3 seconds. So this makes you really tanky. It also applies minor defile, but it doesn't really matter. It's only very short and the heal is still crazy high. The next thing, Skeletal Arcanist. This is one summon that you can keep up. It's 16 seconds, so it doesn't really take a lot of focus to keep it up. Plus, it also can take damage from enemies. So instead of attacking you, the enemies might attack the Arcanist. Next up, our Spammable. This is our main Spammable. Deals a lot of damage, and every third cast actually deals 20% more damage. Then we have Stalking Blast Bones that run towards the enemies and explode. This is delayed, so you want to keep this up all the time. Once it exploded, recast a new one. And then we have the Spirit Guardian. This is a heal over time, and it also absorbs 10% of damage we take. This also has a 16 seconds uptime. So you always want to make sure to keep your 2 summons up. And if you get damaged, you can still heal yourself. But usually the Mender is enough to mitigate all the damage. To showcase you how the abilities look like, this is our Blast Bones. It runs in and explodes. And then our Arcanist deals damage. And in case we get damaged, our Ghost will heal us. If it's not enough, we can use the Burst Heal. So we basically have everything we need on the front bar. We also do have an ultimate Shooting Star. You can use this. You could use another ultimate as well. There is like the Goliath transformation that looks very fancy. The reason why I have Shooting Star on the front bar is because it gives us 2% extra max magicka, which is nice to have, but again, not necessary. Back bar we have Glacial Colossus. This is usually the ultimate we use. If you activate it, there's a huge dude coming out and it smashes everything in its radius. It also applies major vulnerability, increasing the damage the enemies take by 30%. That's just crazy. Mystic Siphon. When you see a dead corpse on the ground, you can actually drain them. It will deal AoE shock damage, and also recover Magicka, increasing our sustain. You can also use your dead corpses. Like when those summons die, they will leave a corpse behind. And you can actually also drain these corpses. Channeled Acceleration is a nice buff because it gives a speed buff for a short duration. Okay, he died, so I can actually drain him. There we go. And it also gives us minor force. This is a switching ability. You don't need it necessarily, so you could replace it with something else if you wish to do so. For example, Necrotic Potency. This one allows us to drain corpses and regain ultimate really freaking fast. So that might be a very good option if you don't have switching abilities. Next up, Harness Magicka. This is in your light armor tree. Gives you an 8k shield. So before the enemy can damage your health, it has to go through the shield. You can spam this. You're not gonna die while this is up. Unnerving Boneyard. This is a Necromancer ability. Damage over time deals frost damage. It also applies Major Fracture and Major Breach, reducing the enemy's spell resistance and physical resistance. So all your other abilities will do more damage. Blockade of Storms. Blockade of Storms comes from your destruction stuff. It's nice. Now, it's basically elemental blockout, because depending on what stuff you use. If you use a frost stuff, it's a frost blockade. If you have a fire stuff, it's a fire blockade. Now I have a shock stuff on the back bar. It's a shock blockade. Deals shock damage in a big radius. Now the cool thing about this is, again, you really only need your front bar abilities, but obviously if you can place these two damage over time effects and then swap to the front bar, you will get a lot of extra damage. That's pretty cool. And we can, of course, also drain and put this over it to even gain more AoE. This is basically a death zone here now. All the monsters that stand in here will die. You also want to make sure to have a lot of passives. That brings us to our next point, resource management in general. Let's talk first about passives and then what other ways you actually can increase sustain. So a lot of the Magicka Necromancer passives, you want them all. They increase either your damage or your sustain. For example, here on that Confederate, when you have a summon active, you gain 200 extra Magicka recovery. Now I'm at 841. When I actually summon this, I sit at 1100. So it goes up, and we can increase this even further with other passives. Destruction stuff. When you kill an enemy with ability, destruction stuff ability, you gain magic as well, and you also gain more damage with depending on what stuff you have. Now another very important thing here. I use a flame stuff on the front bar, which increases my single target damage by 8% because of ancient knowledge. Whereas the shock stuff increases it by 8% AoE damage. Now, endgame setups usually run double fire, but the reason why I use this is it's kind of hard to aim a fire heavy attack, whereas a shock heavy attack kind of chains, so it's fairly easy to hit. And why is that important? Because when you do heavy attacks, you restore resources, and actually a lot of resources. So let me drop this. And I use my heavy attack, and you see, the Magicka goes up by quite a bit while I'm dealing damage. It's something not to forget. Light armor passives. We run 5-piece light armor. You have things like this here, evocation. Increases Magicka recovery by 4% per each piece of light armor. Or spell cost reduction. So we get 20% more Magicka recovery and 10% spell cost reduction. That's insane. On top of that, we get more spell critical and spell penetration, which both increase our damage. Racial passives. I'm a Breton here. I get 7% spell cost reduction built in through my race, 100 Magicka recovery, extra spell resistance, and 2000 max Magicka. All Magicka based races work. I do also have a guide on the website if you want to check it out. So if I was an Altmer, for example, I would not have spell cost reduction, but I would have a little bit more spell damage. But then you need to make a trade-off. Where do I get the extra Magicka recovery from, right? Another important thing, alchemy. You need to get this to level 50 at some point, because medicinal use. When using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. Now, depending on what potion you use, without medicinal use, it's only 30 seconds. And the cooldown of potions is 45 seconds. So you will drop your buffs by 15 seconds. Now, if you have medicinal use, you can keep this up 100%. And why is that important? You see, we gain Magicka recovery with this potion. There is stronger potions as well. You even get Major Sorcery, increasing your spell damage or your spell critical by even more. So you want to keep these buffs up 100% of the time. That's why alchemy is so important. Other things you can do. At the moment, I'm running Bloody Mara or the blue food. So I have like almost 43k max Magicka and 20k max health. Now these are 2 stat foods. I could also choose a drink, which gives me max Magicka, max health and Magicka recovery to increase my sustain. So now I have 841 and I use my Witch Mother, I go to 1300. Now obviously when I'm fully buffed with the potion and the summon is up, you can see 1800. So with that, that's a very easy way to manage our resources. If you have too much sustain, you can just use either the gold or blue food, which just gives max health and max Magicka. That's a trade-off you have to make. This drink and this drink too, this is also a drink, they both scale, so you can use them with level 1 already. It's not a problem. Witch Mother's Potent Brew is very cheap. You can just ask someone, like, you need like Witch Mothers in the zone chat, and usually people will give you, because it's very cheap to make and it really helps you as a new player. A small reminder, make sure to subscribe. I will push more of these videos, and let me know in the comment section below what was your first experience with the Magicka Necromancer and like how you played him. That would be interesting to know for me and also the other people that actually watch the videos. Now, a few things to get on the last part. What the Necromancer has issues with. For example, he doesn't have access to Major Sorcery or Major Prophecy. These are the spell damage and spell critical buffs that really can increase your damage again. Now there is one way to get them through potions, but these potions are fairly expensive, so as a new player you probably don't have access to them. Another way to get these would be through the Major skill that you can also level up. Because you have Structured Entropy, gives you Major Sorcery for 20 seconds. You could put that on the back bar, for example. There is also Inner Light, which increases your spell critical rating through Major Prophecy. You could slot this on the front bar somewhere, either remove Blast Bones or your heal, the Spirit Mender, because you already have Resistant Flesh here. It's up to you. But in general, if you build correctly, you will already have enough spell crits. You don't necessarily need that. Make sure to level up Undaunted, so that's dungeons, if you do normal dungeons, veteran dungeons. So at some point when this is maxed out, you can get more resources, because you want to run 5 light, 1 heavy, 1 medium piece, so you get 6% extra resources. A few other skills that I would like to mention. If you need more resistance, you could also run Summoner's Armor, which also reduces the cost of your summons, or Beckoning Armor, which pulls in ranged enemies. When I use this here, it looks like this. If you want to play as a crazy Goliath, go for it. When we, for example, choose this and I transform, it looks freaking amazing and it's just pretty cool to play. And you're not gonna die, because look at this, I have 58k health. It's like, nothing is going to kill me during this duration. If you have questions, you can always ask me on twitch.tv/alcasthq or on our community Discord, link in the description below. Now, if you want to level up faster, I can also recommend checking out my dolmen farming guide. You really don't need anything at all to actually do this. However, if you're a new player, I do recommend actually doing the story, because the story quests also give you skill points. Please make sure to like the video and don't forget to subscribe.